Today Fran is here so that we can take her measurements to draft the sleeve block pattern. To take the measurements for the sleeve block pattern, we need to make a measuring tool out of paper. This will help in getting accurate measurements for the sleeve pattern. We will need 2 folded strips of paper. One strip has to be longer than your biceps so that the ends overlap. The second needs to be longer than the distance from the bicep to the shoulder point. Now we will show you how to make this tool. First we will measure Fran's bicep, then cut the strips of paper. We don't want the tape to be too tight or too loose. Fran's bicep is 29 centimeters. We add another 5 centimeters so that we can overlap the ends of our strip. That gives us 34 centimeters. We have a strip of paper here 34 centimeters long and about 11 centimeters wide. We fold the strip of paper on itself twice along its length to give it strength. Measure 2.5 centimeters from the folded edge and mark close to the ends. Connect the marks. Now cut off the excess. Tape the open side to keep the layers together. Now we prepare the second strip. We want this one to be about 10 centimeters shorter and the same width as the first one. Fold the strip twice along its length. Measure 2.5 centimeters from the fold and mark here, then here. Connect the marks. Trim the excess and tape the open side. Now we place the longer strip under the armpit to give us the proper placement for the bicep. Place the strip as high as possible under the arm. Now lower the arm to position the strip. We don't want the strip positioned too high so that it is uncomfortable. We make sure the strip is not folding at the top. This is the same way we measured the side seam length on the bodice block pattern drafting lesson, from the waist to the bottom of the strip. We measure for the sleeve the same way so that the top of the side seam and the top of the sleeve seam will meet at the same level on our block patterns. Now bring the ends together to tape them. We want the strip to be fitted, so it should not be tight or loose. Tape the ends, making sure the strip is parallel to the floor. To measure the distance from the bicep to the shoulder point, we place the second strip here under the bicep strip. Fold this end over and tape it here. Leaving enough room for the two strips to slide easily on each other. The two strips should be at a straight angle to each other as well. With the bicep strip in position and parallel to the floor, we bring this other strip up and place it on the shoulder. Fold the top, making sure the fold falls right below the shoulder point, like this. Tape to keep the fold in place. The distance from the bottom of the bicep strip to the top of this vertical strip is the bicep depth. Now we measure the width of the arm along the armpit lines. Measure from the back to the front of the arm. We call this the arm cap width. This distance is 18 centimeters on Fran. Keep the measuring tape in place and draw a line above it on the vertical strip to indicate the position of this measurement. The distance from the top of the vertical strip to this mark we will call the arm cap depth. We remove our tool. To locate the shoulder point easily, lift your arm sideways and feel your shoulder area to locate the protruding bone. This rounded part we call the shoulder point. We measure from just under this point. To get the bicep circumference, flatten this circle measure from here to here. This gives a more accurate measurement for the bicep circumference. It is 14.5 centimeters. Since the strip is folded in half, we multiply this number by 2 to get the bicep circumference. 14.5 centimeters times 2 is 29 centimeters. The bicep depth is this distance. Measure from here to here. It is 16 centimeters. We marked here for the arm cap depth. Measure from the top to this mark. It is 10.5 centimeters. Now we continue to measure on Fran. Measure from the shoulder point down to the wrist. With the arms bent a bit at the elbow, measure from just below the shoulder point to the elbow. The elbow length is 34 centimeters. Keep the measuring tape in place and measure down to just below the wrist bone to get the total sleeve length. The sleeve length is 58 centimeters. Now we measure the wrist circumference. Measure at the wrist bone like this. It is 16 centimeters. Now we measure the circumference at the midpoint of the forearm. It is 22 centimeters. Next, we measure the circumference at the elbow as the arm is bent slightly. It is 25.5 centimeters. Now we measure the circumference at the midpoint of the upper arm, or the largest part between the armpit and the elbow. It is 27.5 centimeters. If this measurement is greater than the bicep circumference, we need to make some adjustments to our pattern later on. In this case, the midpoint of the upper arm is 1.5 centimeters less than the bicep circumference, so we won't need to make these adjustments. But we will cover this in the next lesson. Next, we will learn how to draft the set-in sleeve block pattern.